Hey guys, what's up? On this video, I wanted to talk about mistakes that I did when I started training, when I started this goal of mine of trying to change my body by losing body fat and gaining muscle mass. So that maybe one of you guys that might be starting to training now don't make the same mistakes that I did, because it really makes you lose a lot of time over like dumb things that you end up doing, which make you delay a lot of the progress that you could have done in a shorter time. And I think that's normal. I think that most people that go to the gym because of a lot of misinformation from the stuff that nowadays is more common, that you see a lot of misinformation online, but in my time it was also when I saw what people would tell me at the gym, like the instructors, like other people to work it out. Like I tried to see like guys that are already at the gym training for a while for advice. And all of this stuff that they try to preach, there are a lot of dogmas, a lot of like things that are presented as truth, which in practice they don't really make that much difference. And anyway, the process of hypertrophy, the biological process of you gaining muscle mass, the training gives the stimulus necessary for this have a chance of occurring, but it depends a lot on how much you're eating and your rest. The rest stuff is just the most simple one. Mistakes that I did related to rest, which is it's like this pyramid of rest, eating, and training. For the resting part, it's just that I didn't sleep very well in certain parts of my life, and I think that's common, like especially during the pandemic, which I was very stressful and had like stuff with anxiety, and I had like work and stuff. It was very like the whole thing with, because I couldn't go to the gym, I couldn't like go to the beach. Like I mean, during the pandemic, I slept very bad, and sometimes I still don't sleep as good as I can. And that's like the main thing about rest. You sleep well, but I know that's not possible for a lot of people. Sometimes it's because of your work, because of the routine that you have in your life, or personal problems like anxiety, stress, depression. It's complicated. But in regards to rest, the best thing that you can do is try to be consistent in sleeping well. But I know it's not possible for everyone, but there's not much else you can do. Sleeping is something that can affect a lot your progress at the gym, because you're working on it to be doing a heavy physical activity, and if you're not well rested, if both your mind and body are not well rested, it can affect your progress. There's not much else you can do. And there's nothing you can take naturally that can like make up for that. If you use drugs, sure, I know guys that they are using gear, they're taking testosterone, they're taking Trenbolone, and they're like, I sleep 3 hours a day and I feel great. Those guys, like, when you're using drugs, you don't really need to sleep that well, and especially some of the drugs actually make us like take away your sleep. It actually causes insomnia, but it makes you gain a lot of muscle mass. You don't need to sleep when you're not natural, but when you're natural, yeah, you're probably gonna have to have a good schedule of sleep in order to make gains. So my mistake was I didn't prioritize that. I should have slept better. I need to focus on that, because that's actually more important. They're like more important than like creatine. When like there's no supplement, natural supplement that you can take that is gonna make up for a bad night of sleep. Like even if you try to use like heavier pre-workouts, like sleeping is very important. There is nothing that can make up for that. If you want to improve your gains, just sleep better, and it can help you a lot in that. For dieting, I would say in regards to eating, I paid attention to a lot of stuff that is not important. I didn't pay attention to stuff that is actually important. The stuff that is actually important in regards to your diet, either be gaining weight, try to gain muscle mass, or try to lose weight and to lose body fat. The most important stuff is just like calories in, calories out in your macronutrients. So the overall food intake through the day, that is the most important thing. The amount of calories that you're gonna be eating through the day is what is gonna help you gain or lose weight. And then macronutrients mean like the amount of protein you need to eat, a specific amount of protein, which is like because like with 2 grams, at least 2 grams of protein, per kilogram of body weight. So a guy that is like 80 kilograms needs to eat 160 grams of protein. And you can sometimes I think that through my days I end up like eating like 3 grams, but like at least that. So those are the most important factors. The mistakes that I did back then. Here in Brazil, I don't know how it's like in other countries, but here in Brazil, people have this obsession. I mean, bodybuilders, like something that is pushed by bodybuilders and like people in fitness, is that you need to eat specific foods, and those foods are like magic. If you eat those foods, they're gonna make you gain much more muscle mass and lose body fat, like a magic rate. And there's no such thing. Like there's nothing special. Like in Brazil here, we have this thing about chicken and sweet potatoes. Like, there are bodybuilders saying, "Oh, if you want to look like me, you just eat chicken and sweet potatoes every 3 hours," and that's fucking retarded. There's nothing special about that. Also about the like eating every 3 hours was also something that I did back then. It was completely useless. It doesn't really matter if you're having like 3 or 6 meals per day. Like I said, the most important thing it's the overall caloric intake that you have into the day. That's what's gonna make you lose or gain weight. If you're eating, forcing yourself to eat every 3 hours, like going to to work, going to college, and you need to like bring like chicken with sweet potatoes to eat, it's not necessary. Like I mean, it can help depending on like how you made your diet, but it's not really necessary. You can just eat through the rest of the day. You don't, if there's no, you're not gonna go catabolic, because there's this thing. People would say, oh, if you don't eat every 3 hours, you're gonna lose muscle mass. If you don't take whey protein after training, you're gonna lose muscle mass because your body goes into a catabolic state. That's all bullshit. That's not science. That's not how the human body works. The human body is not that fragile that if you not eat for too long, you're gonna, like, your arms are gonna decrease in size. That's just like a marketing tactic for people to try to sell you bullshit supplements or just magic stuff, like this stuff that they say it's magic. So in my dieting, there was a time where I was pretty much like eating too much chicken and sweet potatoes when I didn't have it. I didn't even have to eat that. If you can eat chicken, you can eat meat, fish, eggs, milk for sources of protein. It doesn't have to be something specific. It doesn't make much difference at all. Sweet potatoes, rice, like you can eat junk food. Eating a little bit of ice cream or cake or chocolate, pizza, whatever, is not gonna affect gaining muscle mass. Sure, if you are trying to lose weight, you're trying to be in a caloric deficit. If you try to eat something like pizza or like, that has like a lot of calories, sure. If you eat too much of that, it's gonna be harder for you to lose weight because you need to stay in a caloric deficit. But as long as you're eating like a small amount, there's no problem. Like I have been able to cut down, doing cutting, losing body fat. I lost like 5-10 kilograms while eating ice cream every single day. You can still lose weight and get ripped while eating ice cream every single day. You just, as long as you're in caloric deficit, but that's why you count calories. So my mistake was not paying attention to stuff like calories and how much protein I was eating through every day, weighting like my food, seeing exactly how much I was eating instead of what I was eating. What you're eating is not as important as how much you're eating. So when I started counting calories, things just got much better, and I was able to eat anything that I wanted. Like today, I mean, I'm bulking right now. I'm trying to gain weight. I'm like 81 kilograms maybe. So, and I'm eating pretty much like everything that you can imagine. I eat like cake, ice cream, chocolate every single day. Sometimes I eat pizza, burgers, and I'm trying to gain weight. And I'm like within my caloric, like when I count my calories, everything kind of like it's allowed because I know how much I'm eating through the day, so I can get away with this. And I'm trying to gain weight anyway. So in order to gain weight, another thing, I didn't really bulk that hard. Bulking at the gym culture language is when you're trying to gain weight. You're force feeding yourself in many occasions to gain weight. And that is important because I see a lot of guys online and they say stuff like, oh, you shouldn't try to bulk too hard. You're gonna get fat. And yes, you're gonna gain fat. That is, unless you're using drugs. If you're natural, you're gonna get fat. Yes, you're gonna gain fat. But you are also gonna gain muscle mass, which is the goal. That's why we separate the process in bulking part, where you're trying to gain weight. Doesn't matter if it's fat or muscle. You just have to gain weight. In order to gain muscle mass, you need to get fat. It's just how it is. But that's why you clean bulk. You try to gain weight, but you gain weight slowly. And that's what I didn't really do. Not only because back then I tried to bulk, but I wasn't training the most efficient way for a natural lifter, and I couldn't like make much gain. So I ended up like getting too much fat, and I also tried to gain weight too fast. And I had many people tell me that, oh, bulking is not worthy if you're a natural lifter, because you're just gonna get fat. But then how the fuck are you gonna gain muscle mass? Because people, and some guys say, oh, just buy my supplements, buy my training program, and just eat normally. Just eat normally. That's not how it's gonna work. Like they push this idea that, oh, just keep lifting heavy and eating healthy, and you're gonna be able to gain muscle mass and lose body fat. That can work for like novice lifters, but after a certain point, you're gonna stall. Like the process, gaining muscle mass and losing body fat at the same time, is something that novice lifters can get away for a little bit, or like in certain amount of times. I mean, sometimes you can get away until a certain point. At one point, you're gonna stall and you're not gonna progress anymore. So you need to focus on one or two other. That's what a mistake that I did. I thought this magical thing of gaining muscle mass and losing body fat was gonna work forever. Just because something works in your first year of training, what you guys must understand, in your first year of training, almost anything is gonna work. You don't need to put much effort. Like when I started going to the gym, when I started to just like train a little bit heavier, try to progress in the training, and try to eat a little bit more, my body changed a lot. But that's like only the first year because it's easy. And then after that, I thought it was gonna be like this forever, but it wasn't. Like I had to pay much attention to more details in training and dieting and try to make everything better. So right now, like I have to train or like I have to like dedicate myself to training and dieting like 10 times harder than I did when I was a teenager, and I'm gaining like I don't know 10% of what I gained back then, because your gains are going to slow down. So don't think that just because what you did in your first year training in regards to training and dieting worked, because anything is going to work. If you're a very skinny guy, you don't need to do much to gain muscle mass. It's going to be easy. So mistakes that I did in regards to dieting: not counting my calories, my daily caloric intake, not counting the amount of micronutrients, paying attention to stupid things, trying to force having to eat a meal every 3 hours, which doesn't make much difference. Focus on small things that didn't make difference. Trying to eat specific foods, not letting myself eat foods that people told me that was like preventing me from gaining muscle mass. Because while bulking, those guys say, oh, you need to eat a lot of rice, potatoes, and chicken, and that's how you clean bulk. What makes a clean bulk, like gaining weight without gaining much fat or not? It's just about calories. If you eat too much calories, you're gonna end up like gaining too much fat. That's what happens. Gaining muscle mass is more slow. It's not about what you eat, because I did a bulk when I was a teenager. I got fat and I was only eating clean. I was doing everything that those guys told me to do, which was to eat pretty much like mainly vegetables, like just rice, potatoes, chicken, just healthy foods. I didn't eat like any junk food. I didn't eat McDonald's, pizza, ice cream, and I still got fat because it was too much calories, And right now I'm like bulking. I'm eating everything that I need, and I'm not getting fat. I'm not getting that much fat. Sure, I gain a little bit of fat, but not as much as I did back then, because the caloric surplus is not that high as it was back then, So you can eat anything you want. I think that a lot of bodybuilders try to preach this thing because they don't want to give up their secret, which is that they are taking anabolic steroids. Like, oh, how do you look like that? Oh, I just eat a lot of chicken and rice every 3 hours. That's like an easy way to get away from the answer that is actually those guys are just using a lot of drugs. And if you're a natural lifter, which was my case, that's why like the guys at the gym, they are doing those type of diets and it worked for them. They say it. But it wasn't that the dieting was working, it's just that they are using drugs. So when they use drugs, yeah, their bodies are gonna change. But the problem with the modern bodybuilding, is that those guys, they do a lot of things. They do a lot of crazy things in dieting, training, and plus drugs. So when you're doing like so much things at once, you don't know which one is actually working or not. Like how much does this thing works? How much percentage each one of those things is contributing to my body changes? And in my case, like as I was a teenager that was training naturally and I didn't want to take any steroids, I could see that the stuff that they did in regards to training and dieting was completely worthless. Like they are pretty much making gains because of the drugs. Because if you take a natural guy and you try to just put him in like the routine of a pro bodybuilder, the training wise and dieting wise, the guy is not gonna make much progress. Like it's not the most optional way for you to do this. So for dieting, just you can eat anything you want. You don't have to like not let yourself enjoy foods that you like. And I think that bodybuilding culture, the fitness culture has this how do you call it? It's like almost like a sadomasochistic thing, which you need to suffer to get gains. You need to suffer at the gym. Sure, at the gym is one thing, but you don't need to suffer in food. Like you don't need to like not eat ice cream or cake or chocolate, anything that you want. It's not gonna affect the muscle mass that you gain. Actually, you need more calories. You need to be eating more. Like the type of foods that you're eating is not gonna affect gaining muscle mass. If your body is gonna turn that into muscle mass or fat or not, is not like it's at all. Sure, losing body fat, you have to stay in a higher caloric deficit. Sure, you're gonna have to watch out foods that have higher calories per gram, because then you won't be able to eat as much of that. But sure, it's just about the amount of how much you're eating. Like you can still eat junk food, but just in smaller amounts than if you were bulking or during a cut. In regards to training, not focusing on the most basic exercises enough, wasting time with too much isolation work that don't really make much of a difference, not training doing certain, it's not even about the really muscle groups. It's more not doing the most basic exercises as often as I could. I did like what people call a bro split back then, because that's what pro bodybuilders did, and that's what people told me that was going to be best results. And it wasn't, because you're just doing like the most basic exercises like 1 time per week. You're squatting 1 time per week, doing bench press 1 time per week, because you're doing like the training routine of doing one day you do legs, another day chest, back, arms, shoulders. Like that's one of the biggest mistakes while training, because I try to progress overload even then, but it's harder to progress overload when you're not practicing the exercise often enough. and you can only progress overload once per week. So doing a bro split, which is just training a muscle group once per week, was one of my biggest mistakes in regards to training. Do the exercises more often, like 2-3 times per week, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you guys take a look at like the first bodybuilders, they would do like full body 3 times per week. They would just go to the gym in like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They would just do full body in like they're pretty much like training every single muscle group in a single day 3 times per week, and they work it well. Even for beginners right now, that still works very well. And then things changed, and well, bro splitters came. But you can just go to the gym, just do the basic exercises. Go do bench press, rows, squats, deadlifts, maybe pull-ups or dips. 6 exercises, and that's literally all you need. Sure, you might want to do something maybe for the abs or the calves, because those muscle groups might need something more work. But for the rest of your body, that's okay. So that would be my mistake. Focusing on too much on useless things that people told me they would work. Meaning like doing too much exercises for muscle groups that are not necessary, like doing much isolation work, not focus on the heavy compound movements, because those are the most important, and not doing them often enough. Like everybody should be, that goes to the gym, should be trying to do squats, bench press, and you can do like either rows or pull-ups like 2 to 3 times per week. Like those exercises should be done that often. And that's mainly my mistake in regards to not focusing on the basic compound movements, and not doing them often enough. Maybe not trying to progress as hard, because at one point it gets hard to progress, to increase the weight on the bar, and so you kind of forget about it. Not trying, just not trying hard enough, you know. And you can try to do like training programs, and when you stall, you can try different techniques. You can try to do different periodization. There are different like training programs that you can find online. Like you can try to do starting strength for if you're a beginner. Then there is like Metcalf, I think one called Metcalf for intermediates. Then you have like shit like Smolov. There are so many training programs that are good if you're stalling, if you cannot increase the weight in the bar. So you can do like you take like a percentage of your 1 rep max in a lift in order for you to make a training program. Just simple stuff that I kind of like. When back then I would just do the bro split. I was like, I'm just gonna train really hard right now, and do too much volume in a single day. Also a mistake for a muscle group, like doing like, I don't know, like 16 sets for the chest in a single day, just because it was chest day. So you do too much work, and then you get sore for the whole week, and you cannot like do the exercise again for like 5 days because you get sore. Focusing too much on like things like pump, like feeling the muscle. Like the most important thing in order to gain muscle mass, as science says right now, it's mechanical tension. So stuff like pump, soreness, like damaging the tissue of the muscle doesn't really affect. That's not what makes you gain muscle mass. Hypertrophy is caused mainly by mechanical tension, which is when you're doing an exercise and you reach very close to failure. I'm being afraid of doing lower reps, because right now, I mean, yeah, here in Brazil, people have this thing that they say, oh, hypertrophy, if you want to make muscle gain, if you want to generate hypertrophy, you need to do higher reps. You need to do like 12 to 15 or 10 to 15. If you do too low reps, you're not gonna gain muscle mass, but you're gonna gain strength, which doesn't really make sense, because usually a bigger muscle is a stronger muscle. So when you're a natural, I think my biggest mistake was trying to train like steroid users. When you're a natural, your muscle gain and your strength gains, they're gonna walk pretty much like together. Sure, at one point in certain exercise, they might not work like that, depending on genetics. Also, some people just have very good insertion points for a certain muscle group, and so it just the shape of the muscle can develop itself easier than other people, whatever. But usually, like, if you're gaining strength, if you're improving in a lift, progressing, overload, increasing the weight, your the muscles that are involved in that lift are probably gonna get bigger. That's usually how it works. It's strength and muscle size usually work together when you're a natural lifter. So my mistake was not paying attention to that enough, not focusing on trying to progress like in certain exercise as much as I could, and And because of that, I was afraid of the low reps, because people said, oh, if you do low reps, you're not gonna gain much muscle mass. It's not hypertrophy. It's just gonna be focused on strength. And it's actually the opposite. And because of that, since lower reps tend to make it easier for you to gain strength, it's kind of better for hypertrophy as well. It's just this big myth that, oh, if you do like, because right now I usually like to do like 4 to 8 reps. Over 8 reps, they almost feel like cardio for me. So 8 to 8 reps, I feel like it's the best for me to progress, both in strength and hypertrophy. Because like I said, those two things, they go kind of like hand to hand when you're a natural. So in order for me to get a bigger chest, I want to make my chest increase. I need to increase my bench press or my incline bench press. I need to progress overload on the incline bench or the flat bench on dips. And in order to do that, I felt like, I mean, for me, it has been easier to progress overload when I'm doing like in the rep scheme of 4 to 8. Like if I do too much reps, I don't know. I just don't. If you take a look at most, they are always gonna be in the lower reps. So don't be afraid of doing lower reps. Sure, I think that is very good for you to do like 1 rep maxes. That much in both in strength and hypertrophy tests. If you just, or if you're gonna be like I never did that 1 rep max. I don't think it, like I'm okay with doing like 4 rep max, but below that I don't like to go 8 because the heavier to 8. But doing a muscle group training, over the compound movements enough times through the week. You doing exercises to get a pump that don't really make much difference. It's not gonna help you with gains. And being afraid of low reps, which they're actually great. The compound movements, like you don't want to do like very high reps like squats, deadlifts, you're probably gonna reach failure, muscular failure if you just couldn't be not being able to actually lift more weight, you know. So pretty much like the mistakes kind of like slowed me down, and I think that's like the gyms. That's all the people do. Oh, I'm just gonna eat a lot of chicken and rice, which it's gonna just magically make me lose body fat and make me muscle mass like a steroid user. Nothing special about that. The training, like, oh, I'm just gonna do a lot of, I'm just gonna do 5 exercises for the chest in one. At one point, no. I think that another mistake, spending too much time at the gym, doing a lot of isolation work. You don't need to stay that long at the gym if you know what you're doing, because usually people stay longer at the gym because they're trying to do more exercises for maybe weak points. I tried to do that like a few months ago. I wanted to improve my arms because I feel like they're a weak point in my physique. So I was just doing more like biceps and triceps work at the end of my upper body routine. And right now I stop it. Like I stopped doing isolation work for my arms, and there's no difference. Like I try to do a lot of sets for biceps and triceps, doing to do like a bicep of those, and my arms were not really improving me. Even I was like wasting like extra 20 minutes at the gym just by doing a lot of sets, super sets for the biceps and triceps. And my arms are not really improvement. Now I'm just doing the basic stuff. I'm just doing bench press, dips, pull-ups, chin-ups, rows, and my arms are still the same. Like isolation work, I feel like for the most people, for most part, they don't really make that much difference. Like usually the compound movements, they're already working the muscles that you pretty much like all the muscles, and so you don't need to do more stuff. Like I never felt much difference by doing more isolation work. Like the results are pretty much like the same thing. Actually, the time that I had the most gains at the gym was when I did small of training, which is pretty much like the most simple training, which you're just doing a lot of squats, bench press, like you're just doing the basic exercises a lot of times per week. And I'm doing a lot of volume, a lot of sets. Like you're doing squats 4 times per week. You're doing like I think 30 sets, like around like 30 sets per week. It's a lot for just one exercise. You're doing right now. I had the most results for like my quads, for my legs to increase by doing just squats like 4 times per week, which is just fucking stupid. It's very tiring. But just focus on the basic exercise and doing them a lot. I feel that frequency is more important than volume. At least it was for me. So that's pretty much it. In regards to bulking, I would say that my mistakes, like I said, it was just by eating too much, trying to gain weight too fast. And for losing fat, if you want to cut down, I think my mistake was trying to lose fat a little too fast. And I feel like trying to train more, because you have this thing, oh, if I'm gonna cut down, I need to train more to prevent losing muscle mass, and that's actually a mistake. Right now I feel like it's more effective when you are cutting. You just want your body to remain at the same state. You don't want to gain more muscle mass. You're probably not going to be able to gain muscle mass, because I try if I increase the volume, if I do more sets while cutting, then maybe my body will gain more muscle mass. That's not going to happen. That's just going to make just gonna make you get tired faster. You're gonna be just like the dieting and in the training during the cut. It's just gonna make you burn out faster than if you wasn't doing like that, you know. So during the cut, I would say that my mistakes were not only cutting calories a little too much, but trying to do too much at the gym. I would say like when you're doing a cut, you should decrease your volume, just decrease the amount of sets, keep the training more simple, and do more cardio. Like that's gonna happen. Just make the training even shorter. Do like 30 to 40 minutes training at the gym. Focus on the most compound movements to close to failure, and that's it. I think that during the cut, you should just keep it basic. Like spend less time at the gym because you're eating less calories. You won't have as much energy. You're gonna burn out faster if you try to train too hard during a cut. Especially if you're natural. If you are using anabolic steroids, like most of the stuff that I said is like not gonna really apply that much. Like sure, it's gonna stall your gains, but the anabolic steroids are gonna kind of like make up for mistakes because that's what drugs do. They kind of make up for mistakes at the training. When you are natural, you need to do things right because the only thing that is generating muscle mass for you that is stimulating is your training. So if your training is not right, if you're not eating enough and resting enough, it's not gonna happen. You don't have the drugs to make your body change on its own, you know. And yes, it is possible for you to gain muscle mass or taking anabolic steroids without actually training. There are actually scientific studies that show that at a certain dosage, that can happen even without training. That's how powerful and magical these drugs are. But well, that's pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions in regards to training, just leave it below in the comments section.